Namaste. Welcome to episode 5 of season 2. We were discussing some chosen 5 superhuman powers and trying to help ourselves relate to that and demystify that. We talked about enlightenment in the previous episode. Now we will try to cover at least 2 3 in this episode. I'll make it a little fast because this is not our aim. We have to cross this and move forward. Verse 40 of Pada 3 of Patanjali Yoga. By controlling the currents that govern the lungs and upper part of the body, okay, that means you have moved up already, okay. The yogi can walk on water and swamps or on thorns and similar objects, and he can die at will, okay. There are three things that are being said here, okay. One is the yogi can walk on water and swamps, which means somewhere you are starting to deal with the force of gravity. Gravity pulls down, right? Your mass pulls down. That means there's a certain amount of mass changes, the attribute of mass associated with subatomic particles. We're making some changes there, okay? And that change makes you lighter, thanu. We talked about tanmatra. We said in the entire process of demixing the panchabhuta, you are going to get into tanmatra and then further down before you completely disintegrate. So this is somewhere in between. Tanmatra, thanu, light, tenuous. You are a lighter version. In the sense that gravity doesn't seem to apply as much as it was. So gravity is one of the fundamental forces, rather the first force that came out. Okay. So that is one thing that is getting implied here. And this, when taken further, it gets into levitation and so on and so forth. Okay. So in this quantum biological changes that is happening to you, okay, where we talked about Shakti and enlightenment, we are now seeing some changes that happen when you are able to deal with gravity. You are able to walk on water and swamps. I think one of the Shishyas of Shankara, if I am right, it was Padmapada. Padmapada, when Shankara called him, Padmapada was on the other side of the river. And Shankara called him, the Guru Bhakti, they say, was so much that he just dropped what he was doing, ran across the river. Okay? And Padmas evolved and he was able to walk on that. That means Padma is Kamal or lotus. The lotus itself is so, it can't hold weight. Okay? But it is there. But it walked. He walked, he ran across and okay. That's a story, might have been true. I'm not dismissing that. Because if this is true, that is true. If this is possible, that is possible. People walking on water is possible. Levitating is possible. Okay. So, by controlling the currents that govern the lungs and the upper part of the body, the yogi can walk on water and swamps. That is first part. The second part is he can walk on thorns. Okay. Walk on thorns means that thorns will give you pain, the sense of touch. Okay. Now we said that somewhere after, we said in season 1, somewhere after the Karmendriya Nigraha, you have to get into Jnanendriya Nigraha. And among the Jnanendriyas, the sense perceptions, 4 of them are here. 1, 2, 3, 4. The 5th one is all over, which is sense of touch. That means when you do Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi on this, and that means with your pranic force, whatever sadhana that you are doing, you reach a level when your sense of touch gets withdrawn from the body. Okay? Even if a thorn pricks you, you will not know. So that is Indriya Nigraha, Jnanendriya Nigraha of pulling the sense of touch upwards. Now mind you that from here you are moving up and even every Jnanendriya has to be moved up, centered, and then moved up from here. You have to move here. That is our destination from a human biological point of view. Somewhere the sense of touch has to move up. So the Bhuta Shuddhi and Nadi Shuddhi, which we discussed in season 1, okay, taken to higher levels with appropriate sadhanas of centering it and moving it up, moves the sense of touch. That even if you walk with your eyes open, ears open, and if somebody is calling you, running it, it won't hurt your. You will not feel the hurt. Its hurt might be there. Thorn might be pricking you, blood might be oozing. That's okay. But you don't feel that. It moves up. Okay. That's the second part. The first part we said is linked to gravity. If you go to particle physics, they will say graviton, quantum gravity, okay, so on and so forth. If you go to classical physics, they will still say gravity as the fundamental force. So somewhere in the out of the one fundamental forces, you're starting to deal with gravity and quantum gravity. Okay, and from a sense perceptions, you start to deal with the sense of touch. And the second thing is, the third thing that they say is he can die at will. That means prana, which is holding the life together, okay, you're now starting to get control on the prana so that you choose your time of death. You choose your method of death. Why it is required? I'm not saying it's required. I'm saying this is the science. Okay? That means somewhere the mrityu bhaya, because today death is uncontrolled, unregulated. You don't know when you will die, you don't know how you will die. But then in this yogic process, you get a control on that. Ishwaratvam, Ishatvam. Okay, you get a control on that. Okay. Ichha maranam, as they say. Somewhere in this process, when you move up from here to here, okay, you are able to do that. Examples. Now, I went to somewhere near Tanjore, Trichy, when we were going around the temples, and one of the samadhis of one of the yogis. The story was that yogi had mastered the sense of touch. In peak of summer in Tamil Nadu, it touches about 40, 41, 42. And in the black topped, tar topped road, it will be so hot. And he would just sit as if he is sitting on a normal chair. Sense of touch. Okay. So that he had, something has happened to him. Quantum biological changes that has happened to him. That's one part. And there are a lot of videos that are flowing that some yogi is lying on a flame. It doesn't hurt him. It doesn't seem to hurt him. He seems to be perfectly all right. So that is another kind of. These are videos of people living now that you are seeing that. So I am not saying you are not talking about Purana. Okay. Then there was one video that you saw of a person who was a Padmasana and floating in water. Okay, that's again this floating in water. Okay. So somewhere consciously or unconsciously, either he was born with it or he developed it, whichever way it is, right? This so-called superhuman power is happening here in this body. Okay, so three things we said. And die at will, of course, we know Bhishma. Bhishma chose his time. He was waiting for Uttarayana to come. Okay. After the Mahabharata war, and then so many people, Marana Ichha Ichha Maranam is very, very common. Common in the sense, you can see many examples for that. People leave their body they don't die, they just leave their body. So that's verse 40. By controlling the nerve currents, by controlling the currents that govern the lungs and the upper part of the body, the yogi can walk on water and swamps, or on thorns and similar objects, and die at will. Three possibilities that they have. We'll move on to 49. 49 says, by making samyama on the sense organs. Now I just took you from light, Shakti, to prana, to light, enlightenment that's happening here, and then I moved up a little higher. Now by making samyama, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi of the sense organs, when you master the sense organs, okay, that's what samadhi of sense organs. The body gains the power of movement. The body gains the power of movement as that of the mind. You know, the mind moves faster than, much faster than the body. People even say the mind can move faster than light. Okay, that's a poetic way of saying. Maybe it's true. From a sense perspective, what sense you have, it is true. Okay. Hence, the body gains the power of movement as rapid as that of the mind. And the power of using the sense organs outside the confines of the body. You are using the sense organs outside the confines of the body, and you can move as very fast. Okay. Now, this is used in martial arts. I mean, the movement is so fast, so quick. And particularly if you go to the Chinese and Japanese methods, even our Kerala method, what is it called? I don't remember the name. Okay. Kalaripattu or something like that. Okay. The movement is so fast, with or without weapons, jumping upside. So the height that they jump and then twist and hit and all that, okay, get control of things around them, other bodies around them, can be related to that. Okay. And the body gets the power of the movement as rapid as the mind. That is one. Second thing is, the sense organs can work outside. Without you seeing it, you get to know. Now that's now pratyahara of the highest order. Pratyahara of highest order. That means even if you are not seeing it, you can deal with that. Like many movies do that, but that's all man created. Okay. The hero is always handling 15 fellows. Okay. And he's not looking at them. He's just hitting all over the place. That's okay. That's all camera trick. But then this is possible. Right? Kalaripattu fellows, you can see that karate, kung fu, the movement, flexibility, tai chi, and all that stuff is related to this. And the practice that they do is they don't look, but then they stop. They defend, they offend, whatever that they do. Possible today. So it's not as superhuman as you would think, what the Purana says. It's something that you find normal examples around you. We'll come to 45. Now that also means that you are getting, what they say is you are getting control of your sense organs. So much so that in your path to the moksha, you can control the sense organs, but don't let it go outside. Don't use it as a superhuman power. Continue, because you have got a long way to go. Okay. So you do the karmendriya nigraha, you do the jnanendriya nigraha, okay, control the senses, regulate them, okay, and stop them from moving outward, okay, move it inward only, and then you move up, and then you get to mind, okay, and that is where Mr. Patanjali is truly coming, mind and upwards. So somewhere you can see that your sense, the inner sense, the sixth sense I talked about, when he talked about introduction in Pratyahara, is slowly moving into controlling the sense of touch, the sense of the sense organs, and then moving into controlling mind, and then moving further up. So that's the thread that you have to catch on, the sense of the inner sense. Okay, and continue to do your sadhana improvement in terms of asana, pranayama, etc., and you can move up. Okay, we go to 49. We just discussed 49. We'll go to 45 and 46. Okay, now this is where you get a little superhuman that you might think. Okay, by making samyama on the gross and subtle forms of elements, which is the panchabhuta and tanmatra. Now we move from grossified panchabhuta sharir to tanmatra, which is the senses. And then when panchabhuta thins out to tanmatra stage, which is equated to senses, okay, the five senses of smell, vision, taste, sound, hearing, and touch, sparsh. So we are now controlling those senses, not just the organs, not the physical organs, this thing, okay. That's the subtle form. The gross form is Panchabhuta, the subtle form is Tanmatra, or slightly apanchikrit, the reverse process of panchikarana, as Shankara would say. Not full apanchikarana, which is disappearing, but somewhere in between. Okay. By making samyama on the gross and subtle forms of the elements and their essential characteristics and the inherence of gunas in them, gunas we'll see later, and on the experiences they provide for the individual, based on your experience of how you are controlling them, what you have understood inside, how it works, one gets mastery of the elements, the Panchabhuta. Okay. Now this is where you start to get control over matter, energy. Later on, I would say gravity, I would equate it to the relevance of dark matter. So that means somewhere in dark matter we already have it. Light is matter and antimatter merger, photon. Okay. Now we are getting control on matter, energy. That means your electromagnetism itself, this is all getting streamlined. The electromagnetic field is getting streamlined. Science equivalents. Okay. Among the fundamental forces. But then something is happening at the quantum level in the cells. Okay, that's the fundamental stuff, including that. And that comes back to strong nuclear force and weak nuclear force and all that. So you are, in this process, you are dealing with the four fundamental forces, as classical physics would say, are quantum forces and fields and force carrying particles, okay, of the subatomic physics. Now, biological system, going back to the content of the cell. Now that's a big picture in terms of mapping science. Okay, we're able to master. When you master that, that means the matter inside is different, not different from matter outside. If you can know how to handle the matter inside, you can handle matter outside, and therefore you can create, let's say, a Rudraksha from thin air. You are now getting into superior orders of purification and transformations that are happening here. Okay. The 46th one, which says, one gains the power of becoming as tiny as human atom and all similar powers without the abstraction of the elements. Today you can't reduce your size, you can't increase your size, you can't become light, you can't become heavy. So the so-called Ashtamaha Siddhis, that is called Anima, Garima, Anima, Lagima, Mahima, Ishitvam, Vashitvam. Vashitvam is, these days, a lot of things are happening around that. They are called, what is it called? Manifestation. Ishitvam, Vashitvam is about manifestation, like people say. That means you can manifest your will and then it will happen. Okay, there are some people who were probably born with that and they are able to do that. Okay. So Prakamyam we'll see later, Bhukti, Icha and all that stuff. So there are Ashtamaha Siddhis are there, and Ashtamaha Siddhis has started to happen here. Now Ashtamaha Siddhis in the Shakta Marga is the basic. The Ashtamaha Siddhis in Sri Vidya is around Bhupura. Bhupura means around the Panchabhuta. Okay. From there you move up the Meru level. Okay, so when you get to know Ashtamaha Siddhis, you are already in a highly evolved transformation level, but there is a lot more to come from the Shakta Marga, which is not dealt in Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi is still saying all this will happen, but you stick on to Pranayama. Okay. Okay. So that's about 45 and 46. And the last one I will deal with this 39 is important. One of the Ashtamaha Siddhis is this. When the bonds of the mind, that means we moved from physical, Panchabhuta, to Tanmatra, which is senses, and now we are looking at mind. When the bonds of the mind, by stilling of the mind, mastery of the mind, what people normally call meditation, as Buddhist meditation would say, caused by karma have been loosened. Now he introduces the word karma, we'll see later. Okay, so he says the bonds of the mind have a karma component to that. Therefore, we have to discuss karma, which is a Vedantic topic. Okay. When the bonds of the mind caused by karma have been loosened, like you loosen your Panchabhuta to Tanmatra, you have to loosen your karma. Okay, the karma has been, which is very hard, timur. Okay, has to be loosened and becomes a vasana, and then the vasana also has to go away. So it's called karma vasana. That is Vedanta. So if you want to discuss karma and vasana, you have to go to Vedanta. That deals with it much better. When the karma gets loosened, the yogi can enter into the body of another by knowledge of the operation of the currents. So how these currents move within your body? Okay, you can move to a other body. Okay, what is it called? Parakaya Siddhi. Parakaya means other body. There are examples of that. Saint Tirumular of the Shaiva saint groups cluster was himself originally somebody else who went into the body of Mulan, a person who was herding the cows. Okay. But he is supposed to have lived for 3,000 years or something like that, thousands of years. That's a saint. Adi Shankara is supposed, there's a story about Adi Shankara moving to another body. So several people moving to another body. Okay. So now once they move into other body, you don't know what to call them. If Chidambaram is this, but if I move to other body, what is Chidambaram then? There is no Chidambaram. Something, it must be called something else. Na? So that takes you to Vedanta. So what is it that moves from this body to another? You have to give a name for that. That name in Vedanta, it's called Jiva, Jeev. That Jeev is what takes rebirth. So here, somebody attains a Siddhi and then moves out of this body to some other body, and this body can be disposed of. And then, but he lives on. The Jiva lives on. So this Siddhi, superhuman powers, I want you to understand. If somebody is handling it, it happens. Now, if he moves out, but doesn't move to another body, what happens? Now, that is moksha. Okay, so that is where when I keep saying that you have to exit out of this Brahmarandhara, okay, when you master the whole thing and you exit, it is moksha. Where does it go? There's nothing to go. It's here. No form. That's where we come to the idea of cosmology, Big Bang theory, singularities, the singularity theorem of Roger Penrose, and then several possibilities of singularities, which is a new finding by Roger Penrose himself in 2021. We are talking about science of 2021 here, to bring credence from science to this, rather unifying the scientific knowledge with our knowledge. So, and what is that state? That state is para. That state is para Brahman. We will see that. There are two more states there, but we'll see that. So, Parakaya Siddhi is a demonstration of the Jiva exiting from here to here. But supposing you don't exit through Brahmarandhara, you exit through something else on death, which is uncontrolled. Death is uncontrolled. The Jiva, when it exits at that level of transformation that it has had. Okay, so it has to find a body which can support that level of transformation, and that body can be a Panchabhuta body of a different order. It need not be human. It can be human. It can even be an animal, because if you have not even moved up, if you have gone down further, it can be another animal, insect. That is what is the idea of rebirth. And that science we will link to quantum information when I talk about what goes in or what goes out of the body, okay, when you die without your control, okay, and not exiting through this, exiting through some other nadis. Okay. That's called the Sukshma Sharira. The Sukshma Sharira of Vedanta is the Jiva of the Veda, is the Veer of Tamil. Which suffers inside this universe only. If you have not mastered this, you are moving inside, outside, outside. So one might want to conclude and ask a question: do you require to master this level of yogic perfection, okay, to attain moksha? Okay, now we are still talking about para and apara vidya. We still haven't brought in the idea of gun, raja, tamas, sattva. So this is one method for you to understand, because we started with let me understand what it is. What is this? What are the potentials? What is the highest potential? How do I get out of this and then do that? But then I have still not introduced the idea of triguna. Triguna to sattva guna to nirguna. That will take us to Vedanta again. Vedanta deals with it in a better fashion. So this is, even if you don't do this, if you master the gunas, there are ways of attaining moksha. So don't get disheartened. I have to do so much to gain moksha. There are other ways of, simpler ways of doing it. But this is for people who are caught up with their sense of this individual being. You need to understand what is happening here. We need to move from this to that. Okay. So that is verse number 39, Parakaya Siddhi. I picked up only these 5 or 6 to explain what we are talking about in terms of several schools. What is the core of Hindu schools? These are all part of Aparavidya, universal knowledge or cosmic knowledge, cosmic consciousness, cosmic powers, individual consciousness, individual powers. Okay. But then we are talking about something more. And therefore our aim is there. If there is another way of reaching there, we can still use that without yoga. There comes bhakti, jnana. Okay. Kriya yoga is still in this form. Kriya yogas, all kinds of 144 types of Kriya yogas are all only in this. Chakra, nadis. Okay. Opening up, enlightenment, spark of light, the inner light, all this is only this. Okay. But there are other ways to do that as well. We will deal with that later. But right now we will stop here, okay, with this. Okay. So there are 4 episodes which I propose to release today on season 2. And then we will see how to take it further. Okay. Thank you. Namaste.